that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Running back to the end of my life. Jesus saved me in time. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Running back to the edge of my life. Jesus saved me in time. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Running back to the edge of my life. Jesus saved me in time. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Running back to the edge of my life. Jesus saved me in time. Jesus saved me in time. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Running back to the end of my life. Jesus saved me in time. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Running back to the end of my life. Jesus saved me in time. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. Happiness comes. That has come to me. Running back to the end of my life. Jesus saved me in time. Running back to the edge of my life. Jesus saved me in time. Happiness comes so seldom. That has come to me. It is here in the Father's kingdom. It was there for me. You took me in, and you washed away my sin. You washed away my sin.
You ready? You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Pardon me. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, theys, and gays. This is The Real Pineapple. This is your humble host, Hunter, here. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. I should probably turn the lights on. There we go. This is not my first stream. Uh, good evening, good morning, wherever you are watching this from. Hope you're doing well. Like I just said, I hope you're staying safe. Um, yeah. How's your week, everybody? How are y'all? Um, yeah, let me know something good about your week in the comments. I'd love to hear more of that since I think we could all use a win, you know? So, yeah, if you're watching this after it's live, let me know something good about your week in the comments. I am quickly going to pour my beer here. But, yeah, as far as myself, I am the pod is officially in screener season. So what that means is you're going to be getting a ton of fucking reviews. A ton of fucking reviews. I just got my first box set of screeners to watch, so I'm going to start working my way through those next week. So really from December 1st, December 2nd, I'll say on, pretty much through the end of December, you're going to be having a review almost every day. I'm going to kick off the 12 days of Real Pineapple holiday reviews. I'm going to kick that off on the 12th, leading up, of course, through up into Christmas Eve. And then I think what I'm going to do, I haven't decided yet, I might do an early morning Christmas Eve stream and like watch Jingle, do a Jingle All the Way live stream or something like that. I'm figuring out what I want to do, but I'm gonna do something probably on Christmas Eve, but it'll probably be earlier in the day. So just just be aware of that. But yeah, so I mean that's gonna be gonna have that coming, and then as far as the reveal of the schedule. I'm going to do that on December 2nd. I'm going to reveal of the whole holiday schedule just because there are some more things obviously still coming out that I'm not aware of yet. So, yeah, so I will go ahead and have that reveal. So, but yeah, I'm really excited about all the Oscar stuff, all the screeners, and about getting some holiday reviews out to y'all. I might do a review for like Thanksgiving Eve. I haven't decided. Yes, I agree, buddy. So, but I'm still kind of figuring that out. But yeah, keep an eye out on that stuff because that stuff is going to be coming soon. So, with that said, I'm gonna jump into my review, my first review proper. Buddy, here, no, here, you're okay. I think you can see Mr. Katzen there on oh yeah, you can see him. He's being a little honorary here. Do you want some weed, buddy? Do you want some weed? Okay, hang on. No. Oh, he jumped down. So yeah, the cat ironically actually likes when there's weed in the room. But so getting to our first review, I've got a review for The Substance, which is really making a lot of waves right now. A lot of people I've talked to have really enjoyed it. I've definitely talked to some people who haven't been as big of fans of it, but just what I've been hearing, I was really curious to see what this was about and like how this broke down and everything. And so, yeah, getting to it proper. The film was written and directed by Coralie. How do you say it? Forget is what I'm gonna go with. She went ahead and also did the film Revenge, which I actually saw and actually really enjoyed. But this film follows Demi Moore, from tons of shit. Of course, a lot of people know from Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, G.I. Jane, Margin Call, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, A Few Good Men, just to name a few. And then, of course, Margaret Qualley, of course, from Sanctuary, The Nice Guys, Poor Things, just to name a few. Um, uh, Adam, that's the other one I was trying to think of. But this movie in question, we go ahead and we follow this woman, Elizabeth Sparkle, who's played by Demi Moore, who's been this Hollywood staple for years. They don't really tell us how long, but you could assume it's been a couple decades. And she basically is told, "You're too old to host this show anymore, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for your service," basically. And they give her a fruit basket and they send her ass on her happy way. And so she's going ahead, sitting at home, really kind of driving herself nuts, being really frustrated about being left behind. And she gets this, she ends up getting in this car accident. She gets sideswiped. And the car accident is fucking brutal, I will say. But she's very fortunate. She's basically, she's Bruce Wilson Unbreakable. She goes ahead and escapes without a scratch, but she's clearly shaken up, as anyone would be. And that's really, that sequence is really a catalyst for her to go ahead and have this internal conversation about her mortality and what her legacy would be. And so she ends up being cared for by this younger looking doctor, and he slips her this thing, this flash drive in her jacket, and goes like, "Oh yeah, like, you know, you're welcome," basically. Very, very much a Limitless setup. If you remember, you know, of course, Limitless, Bradley Cooper and Robert De Niro. It's very much like, "Hey, like, you're welcome. I just saved your life." And so the what's on the flash drive is the substance. And so she goes ahead, calls this number, is basically told that, "Hey, if you go ahead and you do this, if you go ahead and take the substance, you're going to go ahead and basically create another version of you, a younger you, a more beautiful you, a more perfect you." But there are a couple caveats. So, like, one of the caveats is you have to go ahead and do basically 1 week on, one week off. So 1 week you're your quote normal self, your quote regular self, and then the next week you're your younger self, and you have to basically go ahead and feed the other husk, basically, because that essentially is what you are. You have to feed the other version of yourself and go ahead and do these treatments and go ahead and basically keep it in rotation and not miss one. And so it's a very interesting concept. It's very sci-fi. Like, I appreciate it just off that alone. But I thought the yeah, I thought that was a very interesting setup. So let me start with the good. Demi Moore should get an Oscar nomination for this. Her portrayal of Elizabeth, I think, is beautiful. I think it's heartbreaking. I think it's fucking tragic. I think it's thought-provoking at points, and I think the film does give you a lot to chew on in terms of like what it's trying to say. Margaret Qualley, she does such a great job of mimicking Demi Moore's like her facial expressions, and even just kind of like the way she walks. Like, there's enough of Demi Moore in that performance while it's still being Qualley's own that I really found quite fascinating, and it really shows just how much she fucking pays attention. Like Margaret Qualley, like I've been saying this for a minute. Like, I really, since I mean, Sanctuary was like, you know, that was like mind blowing, but that was really kind of the first time where I was like, oh shit, like she's fucking amazing. And just seeing her, you know, seeing her in Poor Things, even though she's not in it for a ton of time. And even though I'm not crazy about Driveway Dolls, I do think that it shows that she can even take, at points, she can even take something that's shit, because that's not a good script, but she can still mine a little something out of it. I haven't seen Kinds of Kindness yet. I do need to check that out still. But yeah, her performance in here is absolutely incredible. My big frustration with this movie, and it's just going to be kind of my overarching complaint, is that I think this movie is surface level at points in terms of its message. This is going to be one of those movies that I'm already kind of frustrated by it because I know what the narrative is going to be, and I mean that in the sense of like I mean that in the sense of there are going to be people who watch this and go, "What's the point? What's it trying to say?" And people know what it's trying to say. It's talking about the insane beauty standards that are set for women. It's talking about the fact that, once a woman hits, let's be real, fucking 30, Hollywood at points starts to go ahead and cut you off from roles. People start to look at you differently. Um, we put a ton of pressure, the royal we, obviously, but we put a ton of pressure on women to be perfect no matter what. Men are allowed to age. Not, I would say men don't even have to age gracefully. Men can just fucking age and they can still get, roles and shit, but there is a cap. Like I think that it's very important to I think it's important to remember that people like Meryl Streep and Julianne Moore and did I say Meryl Streep? But people like Meryl Streep, people like um people like Julianne Moore, people like Nicole Kidman, women that aren't, that women that have been in the game for a while. That's not a, Michelle Yeoh. That's not a everyday thing. There's a very rare air for women who are past a certain age who are allowed to still be successful and be in Hollywood. It's not a standard thing. And I do appreciate that the way that the film does kind of turn the lens on the Hollywood in that sense, because like it's literally the moment they think she's getting too old that they're like, cool, let's go ahead and replace her. The person who delivers that fucking message is Harvey, who's played by Dennis Quaid, who, I'm gonna be real, y'all. Part of me wonders how much Coralie even had to direct Dennis Quaid, because the more I hear Dennis Quaid talk, and the more like I think his wife now is like 34. I think he's like 60. I think he's 65, 66, something like that. Let me see. Dennis Quaid. Oh, motherfucker, 70. What the fuck am I talking about? Jesus. Okay, so he's 70, and his wife, Laura Savoy, is fucking 30. That is goddamn ridiculous. I don't give a shit. Like, I know, consenting adults, but really, motherfucker, a 30-year-old, and you're like, my god. So watching this movie, I was like, oh yeah, this is perfectly in line with Dennis Quaid. Like, I mean, let's be real, y'all. This will probably be what Leo's doing when he's 70. Let's be honest. Leo's probably never going to get married, but he'll probably be doing this shit when he's 70. But what the fuck, dude? And so just knowing how slimy and gross Dennis Quaid is as a person, he actually fits in this role like a fucking glove. I was like, yeah, I totally buy you being this person because you're a gross human being. But there's this sequence where he's eating seafood, and the way he's like slurping, and it's oh god, it's gross. It's very fucking gross, and I will give Coralie a lot of credit here. She does a very good job of like focusing in on like him eating and like the slurping, and it's so disgusting. There's a point too where he uses the restroom and doesn't wash his hands, and I was like, oh wow, I hope you crash your car on the way home, you sick piece of shit. It bothers me. It bothers me so much. Oh my god, it's so disgusting. He's so disgusting. But he plays a great villain in this, and the way that he's even talking to Margaret Qualley Sue, it's very much like, oh my god, you're so perfect and you're so great for this, and oh my god, they're gonna love you, you're a star. There's some point where he's gonna make some creepy move on her, like yeah, like as you're watching it, you can get those vibes of, oh, he's clearly like laying groundwork to do something not appropriate at some point. Um, but I think where this movie does fall short is it makes its point, but I don't know. For me, it does go on too long. It's like an hour 42. You could have made this a lean 2 hours easy. I think there are some sequences in here that really just don't need to be here. I think the last third, especially, it's I'm gonna be real, y'all. The last 30 minutes are fucking gross. Like for me, and I'm not a big body dysmorphia, big body horror guy. Seeing aliens jump out of people's chests in Alien and Aliens and all that. That's about my line. Um, I've seen The Fly because I'm a big fan of The Fly. I think that's a brilliant fucking movie. But I'm not a big Cronenberg guy because I know that's like his thing. It's like how gross can we get with bodies and all that shit. I don't like stuff like that. So the last 30 minutes of this, I was like, oh wow, this is really like ew, gross, 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 gross. Um, I won't even get into what happens because I mean, obviously, I I I, I don't want to spoil everything. I want to be light on my spoilers as I typically am. But I think that last 30 minutes, I think it gets ham-fisted, honestly. I think you could have made the point with like half the shit that they show you in that last 30 minutes. It gets insane. Like if you like it's eh, how do I put this? Even the most insane way you're thinking it will go is not how it's gonna go. Like it's more nuts than I will give myself some props here, which is so unlike me. But I was sitting there maybe about 45 minutes through, and I went, okay, I feel like we're probably heading here at some point. And yeah, I actually was able to call at least a decent amount of what occurred as far as the actual thing that occurs. But yeah, that last 30 minutes is fucking madness. So if you're into body horror and body dysmorphia, that's gonna be and that stuff isn't squeamish for you. You're gonna probably find that really effective. You might think it's too much. Like I don't know, but um the homie Brandon who I've had on before, and of course Nick over at the Afternoon Tune, those sick bastards. They love this. This is like in their top 10. And I get why this would be in people's top 10. That's the thing. This is kind of like not quite the same degree, but this is kind of like Oppenheimer in the way that I'm like, it's gonna check these certain boxes for people. It's gonna check these certain boxes for horror fans. I just think that I personally can't check those boxes. This is not. There are just things in this that aren't for me, and I was just kind of like, all right, I guess. With that said, I really did enjoy quite a bit of this. There's the first time you kind of see something going wrong, it's when Sue is trying to hook up with this guy, and I won't spoil what happens, but it's one of those things where you go like, oh shit. And once this thing happens, you kind of go, oh, okay, I can see how the leaves might end up falling here. There is this amazing sequence where Sue is on this talk show, and she's talking about Elizabeth, because the late night talk show host asks her like, oh, like, did you watch Elizabeth Sparkle growing up? And the way that Sue just fucking takes her to task and badmouths her, and just like, I was like, man, this is fucking cold blooded, but in the best way. And there's this amazing line that Elizabeth says where she's like looking down at Sue, and she's like, I need you because I hate myself. And that's kind of the thesis of this movie. It's about, how you view yourself. It's about the way that women are viewing themselves in society, how society allows women to be viewed because of the way that they're hammered home, the way that things like, I've ranted about Cosmo magazine for fucking years, and about how toxic, things like magazines like that are to women's self-esteem. And I do think, I think there's a little meat on the bone that was definitely left, because it doesn't really talk about, like, it kind of uses Hollywood as like the setting in that sense. But I do think like it never really gets into how women also kind of portray that. because women definitely do, like the way that women can sometimes undercut each other and just be like bitchy to each other and harp on each other's uh physical image. Doesn't get into that. It doesn't really get into it from in like a larger perspective, which I kind of expected it to be honest, just because they are talking about like TV. I just went, okay, it would have been interesting if Elizabeth had like a friend or something like that who maybe was going through the substance with her, or maybe tried it and then stopped. Like I just think there's more on the ground floor there that could have been that could have been covered. And then like I do think that when it comes to making its point, like I said, I really think this could have been done in 2 hours. It felt like it was almost stretched out kind of for the sake of it. I don't think it needed to be. Um and like I said, I do think the body shit just gets way too gross for my personal liking. I will say the makeup, holy shit. If this doesn't win best makeup for the Oscars, I have no idea what we're fucking doing, because the makeup in here is fucking insane. There's a time jump, and I'll just say the first thing you see from that time jump is such a holy fuck. Like it's one of those things that I like had to pause and just go like, whoa, like what are we doing here? The film gets intense, man, and I will give it credit for leaning into the intense aspects here. There is this amazing sequence, this amazing kind of one-on-one that Elizabeth has with this guy in the diner about the substance, and the way that kind of ties back to something earlier in the movie is super well done. There's not a ton of dialogue in this either. Like people are talking, but it's way more of a like, I don't want to say it's a silent film, but there's definitely less dialogue that I think a lot of people will be expecting. There's like the visuals really do a lot of the heavy lifting, and like the sense of dread that the film goes ahead and creates does a lot of the heavy lifting. So I yeah, like so yeah, what I'll say just in closing is I did like this. I'm happy I watched it, even though even though I'm not in love with it. I was happy I watched it. So I gotta give it that. Um but with that said, it's good for me. It's not great, but it's still something that, with those caveats, like again, if you're not a big, if like body dysmorphia and things like that don't gross you out, I would definitely recommend watching this. If shit like that does gross you out, I don't know if you'll get to be completely honest. So just keep that in mind, because like I said, shit gets wild in that last 30 minutes. But yeah, as far as a grade, damn. I think I'd go, because like a B plus is too high, but a B, I'll go B minus. I'm gonna go B minus on this. Yeah, B minus. Um, I might end up changing to a B, like that. There's a world where I could do that. But for right now, I'm gonna stick with my B minus. I think a B minus is fair, and I think that's enough that would that I can at least recommend this. Like I said, with those caveats, but I think if you're a Cronenberg fan, holy shit! Like if you watch this and like the body horror stuff, like you find it interesting, or you're like, oh, that's wild, and like it didn't phase you. Oh my god, go to Cronenberg. Like there will be Cronenberg fans made because of this fucking movie. Like I was like, as I was watching, I was like, I can literally hear people going like, oh my god, like I should watch this next. So I will say too, check out Revenge by Corley Forget. Like check that out, because that's a great fucking flick. So if anything, it'll have people hopefully discover Revenge as well. But like I said, I think this is a good flick. I just don't think it's a great flick. It's not gonna be in my top 10 or anything, but I do think that this is something that will, at the very least, cause conversation. At the end of the day, if a film is causing conversation for the better, that's always a good thing. And I will say in closing, I do hope this was like somewhat therapeutic for Demi Moore because of her former piece of shit ex Ashton Kutcher, um, who might have some bigger problems on his hands if Diddy starts talking. But yeah. So I hope this was therapeutic for her. I hope I hope this is the beginning of like the renaissance that we had for Frasier with the whale and everything. I hope this is the beginning of something like that for her. Yeah, because I've always been a fan of Demi Moore, and it's so wild too because there is like okay, that's another thing I will say real quick. There are the amount of boobs in this. So like Demi Moore's topless several times in this movie. Like so many times I honestly lost count. Margaret Qualley is also like naked in this movie. They're both naked. And there was just a point where it's kind of like do you remember Shame, the movie with Michael Fassbender? You remember that? Like I definitely remember like friends of mine being like, "Oh my god, Michael Fassbender has a huge dick." And he does. Good, his real mutant power. But there's that point where you're like, "Oh, this is about sex addiction and depression and oh, I can't even like remotely enjoy it because it's attached to that." That's the same thing here with the substance because like the monologues that Elizabeth is having and just her self-doubt and like there's this point where she's like getting ready for a date and she has this fucking meltdown about how she looks and I'm just sitting there going like you look beautiful, like I hate that you can't see that. I mean, obviously I think we all struggle with that, but it there are scenes like that where it is so effective without doing the crazy body shit that I went, you didn't need to do that, or at least do it as much as you did. But like I said, I think it's a good flick. Yeah, B minus for me. Yeah, I'll stick with the B minus for now. But pardon me. But yeah, that's my review for The Substance. You can check it out on Prime Video. It's there now. There is it's on what is the name of the freaking streaming service? It's on Mubi is what's called MUBI. So you can do a 7-day trial of that through Prime Video. That's how I watched it. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you're curious on it. Yeah, check it out. You can basically watch it. You can like literally watch it for free. So yeah, take advantage of that now if you're curious about it. But yeah, that's my review for The Substance. All right. With that said, I am going to review one more film, and that is this new coming of age film called uh was it DIDI? I think that's how you say it. Which is this new that they just mentioned coming of age film, and it's written and directed, and of course is by Sean Wang is the guy's name, and he's done a couple shorts he did, but this is his like first. Looks like this is his first like feature debut. It looks like he's done. Well, actually, I apologize. It looks like he's done a few things here. It looks like he did this film called Lady of the Harbor in 2017, a Marvel travelogue in 2021. Wrote and directed that, and then Nene and Weipo in 2023. And yeah, so it goes ahead and takes us here. So the movie itself, it's very simple. We go ahead and we follow the titular character, who is played by Isaac Wang, who plays Chris Wang, and so he goes ahead and he's just going through life. He's going through school. He's in middle school. He's about to go ahead and go to high school. His sister in the film, Vivian, played by Shirley Chin, she's going ahead. She's going off to college, and so they have their sibling rivalry. They are incredibly vicious to each other, to put it mildly. And then you have Joan Shin, who plays Shang Wang, who is his mom, and then Shang Li Hua, who plays Nai Nai, who's the grandma. So it's a very interesting setup because we don't know a ton about the family dynamic until the film really kind of gets going. We know obviously the Nana is there, but we don't really know what's happened with the dad. And I will say I like the way they kind of peel that layer back. That's something that they kind of take their time uh, to go ahead and establish. But I really like the way that they are more subtle. I'll say with that. Um, Chris has this best friend who's played by Raul Dial, Fahad, and something I really love about this movie is love and hate. Is I hate how much I relate to this movie. This movie takes place technically in I think they say it's 2008. Yeah, 2008. Um, so you get stuff that I remember growing up with. Like you have MySpace, you have AOL Instant Messenger, you have LiveJournal, you have like the old YouTube logos. Like it was very surreal in the best way to see all these things that I, remember and growing up with and just being like, oh yeah, I remember. I had to explain I'd explain to Alea because she didn't grow up with Facebook with MySpace, how top 8 friends was such a big deal to people. Like I remember people finding out that they were being cheated on because they were no longer in in their top 8, which is fucking insane to say out loud. But it was a big deal. Like MySpace, I think people forget how big MySpace actually was until Facebook became a thing. But um, one thing about Isaac, uh, Wang Wang is what they call him. Pardon me, not Didi. But um, one thing about him is he's a little shit. He's a little shit in the way that most teenagers are little shits. If you've ever worked a retail job, you know how bad teenagers can be because you've probably worked with them. I used to work at an office supply store, and man, the people I had to deal with sometimes, I was just like, Jesus Christ. So I I cannot even begin to express how terrible teenagers can be. But he's an angry kid, but you kind of get why, because he's like he's hormonal, so he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He doesn't know where to put all his emotions. That's number one. Two, his dad's not around. They do get into why that is. And three, he doesn't really know what he wants to do. He doesn't know like if he wants to be a jock, if he wants to be a skater. He hasn't found his tribe yet. And the growing pains of that in itself are really intense and quite terrible, honestly, especially when you're a kid and you feel like there's no one else who's feeling the way you are. To point to myself, I remember, at 13, I lost my dad the summer before high school. I was dealing with some teachers that were really toxic and terrible. I was I was breaking out. I like didn't make the basketball team that year. Like I remember 8th grade just kind of sucked. Like 8th grade was a rough year. And it's hard too because you know that so many of the friends that you have met and have been friends with, you just aren't going to see them as much because they might go to that other school in town, or maybe they move, or so it's like it's a scary thing going into high school. Like I remember feeling that definitely that sense of dread and just being like, oh god, like really. So it's a lot, and I appreciate the way that it does handle that. It handles the fact that he is dealing with a lot, and really just how he's going to go ahead and kind of navigate everything. Him and his sister, they have this shouting contest at the dinner table pretty early on in the movie that even I was like, God damn. Like it's one of those arguments that you have and you go, oh wow, like this is one of those things where you probably don't talk for a day. They were brutal to each other. There's a point where he pees in her lotion. I was like, that's so fucking gross. Like, that is one thing as a dude I've never understood doing shit like that. Like pee, like oh god, I hate shit like that. So when I saw him do that, I was like, oh, you're a fucking monster. And I will say, um, one of my favorite things is when she discovers that he peed in her lotion. She like comes over like at nighttime when he's trying to sleep, and she like pins pins him down by the neck with her forearm and goes, "If you ever pee my lotion again, I'm gonna period in your mouth." And I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, it got me so off guard. I was like, God damn. But also, turnabout's fair play. Don't pee in her lotion. You at like, as someone who loves to use lotion, I'm so on her side on that. I was just like, girl, totally fair. I would fully support you doing this. One thing about this movie too is it definitely captures the way that teenagers talk to each other, including saying some things that are very not PC, which I will not say here, but when you hear it, you'll go like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Yeah. So that's one thing. One joke that I laughed really hard at, and it's like they only use it a couple times, but the times they use it are pretty great. There's this one kid, um, who's that kid, and since he's like, oh yeah, like, you know who I did, your mom, like that's his big joke. So he says that a couple times, and he finally says it to this one kid, and this kid is like, oh, yeah, my mom has cancer, dude. And the kid just gets bug-eyed, like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, dude, she has cancer. And he's like, oh shit, like, I'm so sorry for your loss. And the kid's like, well, my mom's still alive. He's like, okay, anyway, moving on to the next kid. It's like, wow, it's like, you fucking dick. It just it made me very happy. But one thing that this movie really nails is the awkwardness of teen relationships. Um, there's this point where Wang goes ahead and meets this girl, and they hit it off, and like they're having fun, and like it seems like maybe there's Maddie, I believe his name, and like it seems like they're kind of hitting it off, and she's kind of liking him, and he does what a lot of kids his age, myself included, did. He goes on her MySpace page when he's talking to her on AIM, and she's like, "Oh yeah, like I'd love to watch a new movie. Do you have any recommendations?" And he goes on our MySpace page, is like, "Oh, do you like scroll through? Oh, do you like A Walk to Remember?" And she's like, "Oh my god, I love that movie." And then he's like, "Wait, what's A Walk to Remember? I don't like I don't know what that movie is." And it's quite funny because it's a very good lesson. Kids, don't lie about what you like. If someone doesn't like what you like, just don't lie. It's always much worse when you lie. But there's this point where they're playing this game, like, Are You Nervous? And he has a chance to like kiss her, and he freaks out because he's never had that happen before. So he kind of has a freak out moment. And the way that does come back is brutal, is what I'll say, without spoiling anything. But that in particular was something I just went, dude, I fucking feel for you, man. But the way that this movie comes across, like when kids used to use MySpace, when kids used to skateboard all the time, when skate culture was really starting to take a stranglehold. I grew up with the Tony Hawk games. Like I remember playing the Tony Hawk games at youth group at points, and having kids wearing like the Volcom and like the skin clothing and all that, like like wearing like element clothes and all that. Like skate culture was a huge thing when I was going through school, so it was actually kind of wild to see. Like I was like, oh yeah, I remember these brands. But there's a sequence where he ends up becoming um a director for these kids who are skating, led by this guy, Donovan, who is played by Sharon Celia Dink, who I thought was really good. I really liked him in this. He's not in the film a ton, and it looks like this is his acting debut. So good on you, man. I thought he actually did a really great job with the role. He has this little posse with him. The posse is actually pretty funny. Wang ends up at a party with these guys, and there's this really great sequence where something happens that causes him to trip, is what I'll say. But the way that sequence is handled is very well done. It's very trippy. It's very walk hard in the best way. I really like that sequence a lot. There is also there is also this sequence where Wang Wang and Fahad are talking to these two girls. They go to this um kind of like a mini golf type place, and they're telling stories, and Wang Wang kind of just sitting there, and the girls are like, "You're kind of weird, dude. Like, you haven't said anything, you haven't told a story." And he's kind of like, "Oh, well, like, I think I have a story." And they're kind of like, "Oh, what's the story?" He's like, "Oh, it's a squirrel story." And Fahad is adamant. He's like, "Do not tell them the story. Do not, under any circumstances, tell them this fucking story." And he's like, "No, no, no, it's fine." And he goes ahead and he tells the story. And I won't spoil it, but it's one of those stories where you're like, "Oh, there are certain stories you don't tell people when you first meet them." And then there are certain stories that you hold on to for later once you've established a rapport. But that sequence is fucking brutal. But one thing this movie really does nail is the awkwardness of growing up and establishing relationships and getting knowing how to flirt. Like, no one really teaches you how to flirt. Everyone flirts in their own ways. And it was very funny to see these kids kind of going through it, because I remember going through it and how uncomfortable it was for me. And I felt that so much watching this movie. There's a point where he has this big shouting contest with his mom, and that shit is heartbreaking. I won't say what kind of triggers it, but that whole sequence is it's insane. It's so intense, and um the acting in that is top notch. If Joan Shin doesn't get a best supporting actress nomination, I mean, I know it's still early. I know we've still got, I've still got tons of shit to watch, but she is definitely someone I'm like putting a check mark next to potentially for best supporting actress. She's that great in this. I adore this movie. I thought this was such a great flick. This would be a great double feature with Shake Shack, or Snack Shack, pardon me. It'd be a great double feature with Snack Shack or Edge of 17 or Are You There, God to Me, Margaret. Like those Book Smart, like those coming of age movies. This will be in my rotation for those. Like I adore this movie. I'm gonna say A+ for now, but I might end up changing it to a fan fucking tastic on rewatch. Um, I'll be real, y'all. The substance kind of broke my brain a little bit, so I don't want to go too like I don't want to react too heavy on my reviews, at least for right now. But yeah, I think an A+ is fair for this. But yeah, this was so fucking well acted and so well done. And yeah, I enjoyed this so much. So yeah, thumbs up, two thumbs up for DD. Yeah, I adored this movie. It's streaming on Peacock right now, so you can go ahead and check it out. But yeah, definitely make sure you watch this. And it's lean too. It's like 95 minutes. So it's a quick watch, but it's a very entertaining watch. So yeah, that's my review for DD. Moving on, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. But I will be on what am I gonna be on next? I'll be on Friday. I'll be on Friday about probably about 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Pacific, because I'm gonna go ahead and be reviewing Gladiator and Gladiator 2. And then I'll be giving my AEW Full Gear prediction, since Full Gear AEW Full Gear is on Saturday. And then I will either be I'll probably stream Monday for that. But yeah, so that's what's coming up on the podcast as far as what's coming up next on streams. And then as far as next week, I will have a review for Agatha All Along, as well as a review for Wicked. Alea and I are going to go see that on Monday. She is super excited. I'm super excited. So I'll have a review up for that as well. And then, yeah, next week I'll be reviewing what I just said, Agatha, and I'll have a breakdown, a trailer breakdown for the new Thunderbolts trailer. Be talking about that. And then I am finally finally doing my top my MCU wish list. I'm gonna tie that in with the Agatha All Along review and the Thunderbolts breakdown. So go ahead and expect that next week. But everyone, go ahead and follow me on the socials. You can follow me on Blue Sky at a Real Pineapple. That's REEL Pineapple .bsky.social. You can find the show on YouTube at the Real Pineapple. And go ahead and like, share, subscribe, and rate the podcast. It definitely helps me out. You can find the podcast on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify Music, or a Spotify podcast, pardon me, at The Real Pineapple. And you can go ahead, like I said, find the show on YouTube at The Real Pineapple. That's REEL Pineapple. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and what's the other one? Instagram, TikTok. Oh yeah, that's right. I deleted my Twitter. I deleted my Twitter, people. So if you want to talk to me more, hit me up on Facebook, IG, or Blue Sky. But you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at JHunter Real Pineapple. So that's JHunter and then REEL and then Pineapple. Yeah, gosh, is there anywhere else I'm on? It's almost 1:00. People cut me a little slack, but everyone, I think that's it. I think I'm good. So yeah. Oh yeah, and Twitch, find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/therealpineapple. And I don't think I've mentioned it, so I'll say it again just in case. Follow me on Letterboxd. I'm way more active on there than I probably should be. But you can follow me on Letterboxd at Black Shazam. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to y'all on Friday for those reviews of Gladiator and Gladiator 2, as well as my AEW full gear predictions. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you watch this live or you're going to be watching this later. Stay safe, take care of each other, give someone a hug, give someone a compliment. Could all use some more positivity out there. And never forget, as always, to keep it real. Thanks again for tuning in, y'all, and I will talk to you guys on Friday. Have a great one.